Namaskar to all of you, students particularly, and then of course other working professionals and faculty leaders who are present here. Thank you for offering your time today for this session. Well, we have had about 30 plus such sessions now of the Prem Jain Distinguished Lecture Series. We started this, I think, about 2.5 or 3 years ago, and we have had a cumulative participation of over 4,000 such people from faculty, and a small part of faculty, and of course, many are students. Now, the Prem Jain Memorial Trust has about 20 to 22 memorandums of understanding with various colleges and universities across India, in the south and in the north. And we are hoping to see that we get to a target of about 100 such institutions which will participate with us. It's nearly 5 years now. 2018, September, it was that Dr. Jain passed away. And then we said to ourselves over the next month or so that we must do something to not just keep his memory alive, but to see that we continue to keep the flag flying of what he began sometime in 98 or 99, as far as green directions go for buildings and for construction and so on. When the Indian Green Building Council was set up in Hyderabad in 2003, he was one of the key instrumental players, apart from, of course, many other such leaders who came in. And I have had the privilege of knowing Dr. Jain from about 97, I think. And then, of course, through this whole process of the creation of the Green Building Council, we were all there. And he took over as chairperson, I think, in 2007 or 8, and dramatically changed things. Where we were at about 500,000 square feet of certified green buildings, he took us to the first 1 billion square feet. He showed industry how such a target could be first set as an audacious target, and then how you could achieve it too. And then came the next phase of setting a 10 billion square feet over 10 years, and from 2012 to 2022. Sure enough, all the leaders in industry who were part of the core at the IGBC made that happen. Today we have, at that point of time when he said 1 billion square feet, he said for every Indian we must have 1 square foot, and we were about 1 billion people at that time. Today we have got 10 billion square feet plus. I think it's running more at close to 11 billion square feet. And about 95% of certified green buildings in India come from that one institution called the Indian Green Building Council, which is a partner institution, of course, for the Prem Jain Memorial Trust, which was started in the end of 2018. 4 years plus later, we find that we have done multiple events. We have impacted over 40,000 students in various different forms of such activities. Sometimes they're physical events, sometimes they are online events such as this one. And at the lecture series, every time we have had some very distinguished professionals, hugely committed professionals like Mr. H.R. Girish, who is here today with us. And every time the lecture series leaves a certain set of thoughts and reflections for young minds to see if they can be influenced. The reward for us is that even if one student in some lecture series like this or in any of the events that the PJMT offers takes to it, then we know that that one person can change something or the other across India, across the profession, whether it is as architects or whether it's as engineers or as service consultants, MEP consultants that is, or as HVAC consultants, which is a big area of energy consumption in India today. Today's lecture, of course, will be from Girish's context, something that will connect more to construction and how we can design and build, as the theme suggests, with ecological basis for all such design and construction. I must acknowledge the presence of Jaimini Oberoi, who is also the head of the Northwest Council for the PJMT, a very distinguished leader who has been chairperson for IGBC also. He got the secretariat at the Jaipur of the state government of Rajasthan to go green. And he, in one spell of maybe about 3 to 6 months of meetings and negotiations, he got them to allocate 5 crore rupees to make that happen. I think that was about 3 or 4 years ago, just before COVID, I think. There are many others here who are distinguished people who are present. I shall acknowledge them as we go along. What I'll do is this: before I invite the other 2 or 3 faculty leaders who are present here, Dr. Suman Rawat, Professor Pallavi Dongare, I shall first set the context for today's session. Let me put it this way. When we talk design and build, when we talk eco-design, what does it mean actually? And if you were to check out even a cursory search on the website, I'm talking more to students here, particularly to students. Yeah, somebody has to mute. Yatin, please do that for us. So eco-design basically considers environmental aspects at all stages of the process of construction, from architecture downward. The idea is to ensure that the product called the building. No, somebody has to mute, please. Yatin, are you there? Will you unmute and acknowledge me on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please mute everybody because you are the host. Yeah. Well, so let me go back to what I was saying. So the product as a building goes has to have the lowest possible environmental impact through its product cycle. Now, a building typically lasts 50 to 60 years before you do any renovation or repair. Yeah. Eco-design essentially involves designing it to avoid, well, to the extent possible, repairs or damage to the environment, society. So, this connect between environment and society and economy has to be understood by you all if you are going to be, well, good professionals as architects or engineers go. Eco-design is present all around us. Sometimes it's to do with the flooring that you have in your home or in your office. Sometimes it's to do with a smart and efficient energy cooling systems that you have as air conditioners or whatever else. Or even better, you have built a home which is very, very strong on its passive features and therefore does not need any active cooling. Eco-friendly packaging, for instance, if you are into products, if you are beyond buildings, that is. I'm sure that over this 45 minutes to 1 hour of this session that we have with Mr. Girish, he will offer us examples that illustrate how eco-design can be applied in various areas. Essentially, of course, to promote sustainability and to reduce environmental impact. So what are the stages of eco-design, if you ask? Well, it includes, generally speaking, the assessment of the effect a building has on the environment. We call it the life cycle assessment. And if you're students of masters in sustainability or some such thing, you will surely be reading about life cycle assessment. And then there are some 5 stages of life for a building. During construction, then during occupancy, then what happens to it at each of the levels of the use of resources like energy, water, and waste, and so on. Very quick word on Mr. Girish. He's basically a civil engineer. And what is amazing is he turned into a lawyer. He turned also into a management professional. Therefore, he's an alumnus of Nalsar, I think in Hyderabad. And of course, of IIM Bangalore, where he's based now. He spent over 3 decades in construction and in infrastructure. His work has covered many different segments, industrial complexes at one end. He's done some SEZs also. He's worked on roads, interestingly, on grade separators, underpasses, flyovers, and so on. Airports and heliports for buildings and such things. Malls, of course, has been part of his portfolio. Some of the 5-star hotels are things that have come under his work over the last 20 years plus or even less. High-tech R&D facilities that had to be created, and those can be very challenging in terms of construction parameters and so on. Housing, commercial and recreational, high-rise buildings, all of this comes under the kind of work that he has done. I was telling people before we started formally that he is today the chair of the Indian Concrete Institute. But more important for me, given my relation with him of over a decade, is that he has been a very active and core member of the Association of Consulting Civil Engineers. Many of you will know that the ACCE is by far the largest such association of individual and professional institutional members in the country. Even ISRE does not have as many members as the ACCE has got. What is also interesting about him, and I'm sure we will learn more about this, that he often talks about frugal engineering. What is frugal engineering? I would like him to explain to you all. He also talks about optimized construction practices and, interestingly, mindfulness and consumption in the construction sector. Very lovely phrases that I heard from him. And I had the chance of meeting him again very recently, about a month ago, and he was chairing a couple of sessions. It occurred to me that I must call Girish and invite him to speak to all of us here at the Prem Jain Memorial Trust's Distinguished Lecture Series. That is all for now from me. Dr. Rawat, do you want to say something before we invite Girish sir to speak? Suman?
Yes, sir. No, I don't want to say anything. I will just listen what sir is saying.
Lovely.
And then I will say.
Lovely. And I'll request you, after he has spoken, to see that you interpret his message for all your students. I know you're all dedicated, and the intent and purpose of this session is to see that students gain from this. Yes. Well, with this, I will invite HR Girish to see that he takes over the floor and speaks for whatever time he wants to, with the complete comfort. We will listen to you over the next maybe 40, 50 minutes or 30, whatever time you want to take this. Yeah. Namaskar. Namaskar. Yes. Namaskar, Jaimini. You're there, I know. You may not want to say hello just now. Yeah, there you are. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Girish.
Namaste to all, and my hearty dhanyavad, Dr. Hariharan sir. Really, it's a honor that every time I get a chance to, at least interact with you, I have a very definitive takeaway in some form or the other, either reiterating what you had said earlier in other meets or taking away a new idea. Thanks to you. And also thanks to the entire team of our Sri Jain Memorial Trust. So I know Dr. Prem is such a legendary person that even a little bit of a glimpse of what he has done is enough to fire up everyone's motivation towards the concept of sustainability. And also I'd like to convey my gratitude at this moment before I start to Dr. Sumant Rawat, Professor Pallavi, Sri Jain Oberoi ji, Yatendra ji was always so supportive from the word go. Thank you. So I will share my screen right away. Yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, please. Yeah, okay. It's now on view mode. Yes.
Yeah, as we start, as is the conventional in our Bharat, since time immemorial, the very first thing is an immense sense of gratitude. And of course, our Vishwaguru, of course, is Sir M. Vishwesharaya. There's a lot of takeaway with respect to his approaches, with sustainability and frugality being one of them. And when we talk of design and build, let me put a disclaimer on the very first slide that the approach in this lecture is not to provide you very minute hand-holding details where, you just go ahead, apply that formula and you're done with it. But it is to ignite that solution provider concept in us. And most importantly, take responsibility in what we do. That is the approach that I have brought in here. And let me also tell you that today, thanks to the internet and Google Uncle, we see a lot of things that we want to see there. The only challenge is that what do you pick and what do you leave? That's the main thing there. So when such is the thing, there are certain very rudimentary fundamental attributes and intents that we all need to carry as professionals. Because I think that though I don't want to sound philosophical, all of us have landed up in this space of infrastructure, sustainability, and resource management, because perhaps we have something ordained in us that can really lead us to making this world a better place. And since we have only one earth, I think we need to really be very sure of what we do. And the first time right principle is paramount in these times. So why should we design and build the eco way? Very simple. The natural resources and the impact on our planet. That's it. These are the two, if I can condense it all. While the concept of mindfulness and frugality is very much ordained in order to meet these particular requirements of natural resource conservation and impact. For this, we need to really understand how we went about. Let us go back many centuries ago, perhaps millions of years ago, because this is very essential for us to know what we are doing. And most of the materials that we consume today are materials which are naturally occurring materials. We would have perhaps modified it, but these naturally occurring materials have taken millions and billions of years to form. But we are consuming it in a matter of, if you can draw an analogy between the world having been coming into picture in 24 hours, perhaps in the last 1 second or a fraction of a second, we have consumed almost more than about 30 to 40% of the world's naturally occurring resources. So you can imagine how prominent and how dramatic our actions today need to be. And this is nothing like a nice to have, these are must have. So our Earth, basically, when you look at it, what makes our Earth so important and more drawn to this specific approach of sustainability? The very first concept is why all of us need to be, because let me be very frank, we are talking of sustainability purely from a very selfish point of view, that we human beings want to survive. It is not that we want the trees to flourish or not the other living beings to do. Let us be very blunt and honest. First of all, we need to live and we need to survive. And that's why we are doing all these things, because we have distracted most of it. And the very first thing on earth is water, sunlight, and then air. And then we have food which we require and the temperature. Now, if you look at all these things, these are not some very generic points that I'm making. Everything that we are doing today is having a humongous impact on every other thing. It may be on the temperature, it may be on the food, it may be on the air, it may be on the water. And when I say sunlight, the various layers above ours in the atmosphere, it may be ozone, which we are very well familiar with, or other layers. So each and every aspect that made Earth what it is, and what made Earth so very possible to have the life on it, is again the conditions where it is neither too hot nor too cold. It has water and air, and most importantly, it has got the right chemical composition, one of them being the carbon content. Okay, and then of course the magnetic field, which we are yet to deep dive to the extent we are deep dived on other three aspects. So why we are talking of, again, not too hot and not too cold, or water and air, is today whatever distress that you're seeing all around us in the air, it may be triggering the COP, or it may be triggering the discussion on sustainability or going green, the eco-friendly method of construction. All this has already started impacting us. And in fact, you will be really surprised to see that when people start off, youngsters being played by carcinogenic material, leading to, unfortunately, diseases or serious health hazards like cancer and things like that, which hitherto was never ever known in the last many centuries at that age group. Perhaps you ultimately start wondering whether all of these have got a very strong, sutra, a chain, which is linked to one another. And therefore, we cannot keep looking at situations today in isolation. We have to be looking at it in a very holistic manner. So very holistic that you break away and far away from your professional or technological or your information or data that you have, into very micro nature aspects, such as the way of life, your thought process, your basic questions as to who are we, why are we. So these are not some philosophy, these are not some religious aspects. Everything is ordained in a particular manner, which is impacting today the life around us. And there are a lot of evidences which I show you why this is happening. And as I told you, it took billions of years and life began. But then I'll not be surprised with the rapid depletion of the quality of life threatening us. Even the basic fundamental requirements such as food and water and air is also becoming so very scarce. Okay, now coming back very quickly, we all need to understand that it's not that Earth is like a huge sponge and it goes on absorbing whatever you do. Earth is extremely dynamic, extremely sensitive, and the most important aspects of the planet, our planet, is that the atmosphere, the oceans, the ice and life, these are ever changing, changing by the hour, changing by the day, changing by the week. And let's see why these are changing and how we man-made things are adding to this for further depletion. Now, the most important, as I told you, are the three cycles, which are the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and most importantly, how do you go about to replenish what life and help regulate the climate system. Uh, if you go deep back, the concept of sustainability, what I keep doing in this particular talk is that I keep toggling and literally drifting between various concepts. So kindly bear with me, but hold on to certain points which I say. So even way back when you look up to the Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization, there are apart from the nostalgia and the awe that it creates, more closer to us, the architects and the engineers, the awe that it creates is that this was such a holistically planned settlement. Okay, at the very prime importance that they started off, even I am sure, even before the concept was, blooming, was the concept of sustainability. And how do I say that? Is because this civilization, as we are documented, we don't know how far this civilization went or how long it existed. But today we have got documented cases that this civilization lasted for about 5,000 to 7,000 years. But then again, as we go across, new and new evidences are coming up that this civilization perhaps, multiple times much older than what we think they are, and they lasted. But how do they did that? How did they sustain themselves? Okay, so that is very important. That we need to do a lot of deep dive, lot of research material yet to be, discovered, and we need to draw parallels of to what happened then, why all the civilization ultimately came to an end, or did it really come to an end? There is some missing link in the time clock of the world. So this civilization is so very important to Bharat, our country. And of course, as you know, Bharat, there's a huge piece of land and ocean, much further than what it is geographically today, that it gave rise to the other civilizations in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, in China, and so on. So there's something very important from that point of view that we need to see that. Okay, now it will be very interesting for us to see how the population grew. If you look at it, somewhere around the 17th century, you will be wondering how much was the population of the earth. It was just, I think, around 75 crores, 75 crores, right? That is 750 million. So around that, where today our country's population is twice that. But when you come somewhere around here, somewhere around the middle of the 19th century, that is where the industrial revolutions and all happened. And that is where all these discoveries started happening. The high-speed computers, and then we have nuclear power, and then the man on the moon, the PCs, the semiconductors. When you see this goes on peaking, and the slope is so steep that I think ultimately the slope disappears and only the parallel line to the y-axis remains. And this is so very important to us. We have to be very, very conscious as civil engineers and architects of the entire thing. Why it all happened? Because there is a definitive message to us from all this. Why is it the population was so gently growing up to this point, and why it peaked? So this is very important to us because most of us might be dabbling in micro town planning activities. It may be a layout plotted development. It may be a city development. It may be a town development, a village development, or we may be members of a society which influences the decisions taken by the town planning authority or the governmental decisions. And if we are not it, I think we need to become those influential members of the society so that we give the right professional advice based on data, statistics, and time-tested methods. At the same time, also keeping in mind the sense of innovativeness, which we need to take it forward, because that is so very essential that without innovation, we cannot tackle the problems that we keep seeing every day. Every day, the problems that we see are not problems which have been happening for years together. They are new problems. A new problem requires new solutions, which requires innovative way of thinking. So this is very important for us. Please remember this particular map. I'll come back to it as we go along. And today, where are we on the consumption of the earth? Today, as we speak, 2023, in fact, we are consuming 1.7 times the resources that the earth has got. 1.7 times. And what happens? In 2050, it goes to up to almost 3 times the resources. What I mean to say, the speed, the carelessness, the carelessness that we have, this is how we are, speeding with that without thinking of how do we replenish it. Now, every day when we get up, I've been telling that we consume so many things. You just reflect across the day. For example, if you have driven an automobile, if you have traveled by water means of transport, if you had food, if you have taken water, just these 3 things. Now, what is the embodied energy all these took to have in them so that it came to us on the table? And then what is it that we are going to give back? Are we at least going to give back a fraction of this? Something that we need to do. And if we do not today adapt it on an emergency mode, we can see what happens. The resource depletion, climate change, habitat loss, waste generation, economic impact, and most importantly, the social impact is humongous. As I told in the beginning, we are discussing sustainability. Yes, we all have a noble intent that live and let live. We all want the world to be good, the non-living things to be preserved, and the living beings, apart from human beings, to also survive. But most importantly, we need to survive. And therefore, the social impact of our carelessness is there all around for us to see. And what are those social impacts? These are some of the social impacts that we are seeing. We cannot just blame it that it's on bad town planning. It has got, as I told you, everything is connected. Every damn thing is connected here. Now, for example, if this gentleman has fallen, which is very unfortunate, why did this pothole happen? What is the material of construction? And why that could not have been repaired in time? And if it was repaired in time, what is the type of material that has gone in? So all these things that we see here, which are all very much clearly, it is evident that these could have been avoided, but we did not avoid it because we did not take the call when it came to us. And even now, it's not late. We have to step in and take the call. The other situation, which I think this has been flashed a zillion times, the first city in the world is Cape Town, which ran out of water. And I'm sure you know which is next. Next is our own Bengaluru. Okay. Perhaps it was projected that we would run out of water in 2019. And I think now I started believing in God that we are in 2023 and still we have water to drink. So definitely God exists. Now just look at these things, what are happening. Now tell me why these people should be in a situation that they are in. Just because you and me are fortunate to be born to our parents who can afford something basic to us, and these people are not born as such? No, it cannot be like that. We all need to pull them out, and it is our responsibility as engineers and architects to come out with solutions that are feasible and adaptable, and most importantly, sustainable. And for that, let's see how do you go about. Look at this. I'm sure these are not the kids of the person or the group of people who created this dust environment. They are not the children. And in fact, they may be someone else, but they are suffering, and our air quality index is more than wanting. I'm just being specific to our country, but these are happening across the globe. And therefore, one has to ask, sustainability or eco-friendly method of construction is no more a fashion statement. It's no more exclusive. It's no more NTH. NTH stands for nice to have. It's no more stand-alone approach. And therefore, as designers, builders, specialty vendors, we all need to redefine our roles. Now, please keep this in mind. Going forward, we cannot be just a civil engineer. We cannot be an architect. We are that fundamentally by training or maybe by academic qualification experience. But each one of us should be an inventor, should be an innovator, and then should also be a builder, maintainer, and recycler. All these things should come together because we have no time. We have no time to debate as well. All these things, I'll tell you why we need to be inventors, why we need to be innovators. We need to wear all these caps, not one subsequent to the other, in tandem, all together, all at once. For the simple reason that let's now go into a little bit of statistics which are taken from the Ministry of Home Affairs. The housing stock in our country is what it is, and this is a little bit of a dated. But the point that I would like to make is this. When you see the condition of the houses, 94 million are good, 83 are livable, and 10 million are dilapidated. When I say 10 million, why I'm telling the statistics is that how do we go about re-strengthening this or making this relivable is by consuming resources. And that's why I'm telling, when we consume resources, we need to be very, very careful, because 10 million houses, I'm not talking of new houses. I'm not talking of the urbanization which is going to happen in 2032 or 2050, which is a huge, humongous thing. When I take a glass of water to drink, I start wondering whether I'll get a full glass of water in the next 10 years. Because it is there on our doorstep. It is serious. We are already looking at it today. And therefore, when everything matters, every small thing matters. And therefore, when we talk of 10 million dilapidated houses, we need to rectify that houses. Not because that people require it, because more than the people do require it, but then the direct potential it has to impact the society is humongous. And then when you look at the entire stock of the homes, and as I told you, let me also put another disclaimer that I am going to focus on micro, small, and medium constructions, because like I have been telling in other forums, when you put all the construction projects, the huge airports, huge malls, dams, expressways, you name it, the marvelous, landmark structures, when you put all of them together, the volume of construction mass, you'll be surprised to know, is not more than 5%. That means, where do these 95%, where are these 95%? This 95% of the mass of construction is in that small, micro, small, and medium, in that sector. It's a small house. It's that 20, 30, 30, 40, 40, 60 houses. It's in the small villages. It's in that small town where, you have got this industrial area coming up, where small industrial factories in a quarter acre of land, in a half an acre of land. I'm not talking of 200, 300 acres, not 1,000, 2,000 acres where you put up a car plant. I'm not talking of that. I'm talking of the small constructions which actually contribute to the mass of the construction in our country and to the mass of consumption of materials. This is very, very, very important for all of us. And for all of us, you should now refocus on your business plans as a civil engineer, as an architect, and see where do you want to hone your skills going further. If you're doing good on mass, on volumes, on scale, please be at it. But also, because we require professionals, we cannot afford quackery here. As I told you, the first time right principle is so very paramount. Now look at this roof material. Concrete roof only 38 million, whereas tile roof on grass thatch, they are more than 120 million, which means to say that the aspiration levels of the society is very high, people there, and therefore they are going to graduate to having concrete roof over them. And concrete is such a fantastic material. But then every time we talk of concrete, the entire group of audience splits into two. One thing with a red flag telling that it creates carbon footprint, it consumes huge material, it creates heat island and things like that. And then the other group, like which I would like to say, okay, it does all these things, but let us throw the challenge back. Let us throw the gauntlet back and ask, yes, it does all these things, but do you have an alternative? Do you have an alternative material to concrete? And when I say alternative material, don't get me two bags and say, look, this is a bag of concrete and this is an alternative bag of an alternative material. It doesn't work that way. I'm talking of the entire ecosystem, the sourcing of the raw materials, the manufacture of concrete, where there's a huge mechanical, electrical, electronic, microprocessor industry, in addition to civil engineering industry, which are backward integration, which manufacture concrete. The entire ecosystem is set up. There is big data going in there. There are a lot of technological developments happening there. There is real-time monitoring. There are virtual reality, you name it, everything is going there. So we have that ecosystem already built there and galloping by the second. And then we have the entire ecosystem of the labor workforce who know what is concrete, how to place concrete. And then we also have an entire ecosystem, how to maintain concrete, how to strengthen concrete, how to enhance the longevity of concrete. So from this point of view, if I tell you this and throw back the contract and say, yes, now concrete has got this. Tell me what else is that alternative material that you're speaking of. Does it have this ecosystem? Sadly and unfortunately, absolutely no. It is nowhere in sight. We talk of material which are substitutes, but it cannot be a substitute on a mass scale, on a scale of economy, on the affordability like this. Yes, there is some impact, there is substantial impact on the environment. So what do? Instead of reinventing the wheel, I think the prudent method is to be smart enough and say, yes, but can we do something different? Can we reduce the quantity of cement being used in concrete? Can we use substitutes for cement? GGBS, ground granulated blast furnace slag, cementitious material. That is one aspect. The second aspect is, can we think of enhancing the performance of material of construction? For example, we are talking of what? Concrete, which are M20, M25, M30 grade, which are fantastic. Now we have got something known as high performance concrete. We have got something else known as ultra high performance concrete, which goes to M75, M80. Now, when you go to that realm of concrete, you should also realize that the cross section, suppose if I have a beam which is about, say, 600 mm by 1000 mm, which is 60 centimeters by 100 centimeters for M25 or M30, for an M85 grade, M80 grade concrete, that particular cross section halves almost. I'm just giving you a thumb rule. It halves. When the cross section of a beam comes down, the quantity of material that you consume, aggregates, the fine aggregates, coarse aggregates, all those things come down. When those things come down, you start consuming less. When you start consuming less, you have less impact on the environment. Yes, the cement content goes up slightly, but then the other consumption goes down. And then most importantly, what happens? It has got other benefits such that the longevity of the structure, the density of concrete goes up, which makes it less porous, less amenable to water ingress, which means that your reinforcements do not get corroded, which means that your building life, your structure life continues in its design lifespan of 75 years, 100 years, whatever, instead of coming in for retrofit at 30 years. So I just give you, I'll quickly move. And then the wall materials like burnt brick and unburnt brick. We need to do away with bricks because the bricks are manufactured by the top layer of soil. And today we are not having food to eat. There is a dearth of food. And that soil is required to grow that food. So we have to move away from it. And then the flooring material. The reason I'm trying to say that, therefore, a whooping 97% are individual residences, and that a huge percentage of that, again, is in rural areas. They are not in urban areas. So we need to go there. Now, no contribution is too small as I'm speaking. Let us all start thinking of the small things. As I told you, I'm not going to give you a ready-made formula and solution for everything. I'm just going to ignite the spark of inquisitiveness and the innovativeness so that you have to take that further and pass on the baton to your next generation as well. So every drop of contribution matters in intent, in action, and the leadership is very important because leadership doesn't mind your designation. You're a general manager, it doesn't mind. Leadership is that proactively taking responsibility and executing that and accomplishing the task. That is leadership. For example, let us take a real life example of leadership where some great noble person came, started something very humbly. And that example is that of Dr. Prem Jain, who took her as the chairman of IGBC in 2007. And what was done in 2007? Just a minuscule 13 million square feet of green footprint. Just 10 years fast forward, he has been so very much in the front, in the lead, that he converted that into a 5.7 billion whooping percentage of square feet of green print. Just imagine if one dedicated individual can do that. All of us collectively, all of us today in this world of technology, with so much of information that we have, and with such a proactive environment, especially the government that we have, how much more we can go today, and therefore make that change and leave behind a legacy. For example, very small things. This is I just taken a small example. We have got rainwater harvesting. Every time we have rainwater harvesting, the entire catchment comes down right up to the basement. Now, can we have something where, why do we want to bring the entire water here? Can we not create a space here in a floor which is just below that? Okay. And this is going to be the main water tank. And through that gravity, it flows down to the respective floors. And anything surplus overflows into the sump. So what you're doing is you're reducing the size of the sump. Okay. And then that particular sump pumps back water is required for this particular occupants. Now look at it. What we are doing, we are not building a huge sump. We are saving. Okay. And we are reducing the sizing of the pump. If you required a 2 HP pump, I'm just taking a small residential house. on a 30-40 or a 40-60, because as I told you, that forms the mass. Instead of having a 2 HP pump, even a 0.5 HP pump is sufficient to pump this small amount of water to this, because this tank will service only this floor. This tank is already servicing. Why? Because the entire catchment has come into this floor. It is not going down. And then when you talk of small capacity pumps, you are reducing energy consumption, you are reducing the copper windings in that, and then you are reducing the maintainable aspect. Okay. So this is what you are doing. So reduce energy and sizing. I'm just igniting the spark. Very simple thing, such that, we need to bite the tip of our tongue and say, oh my God, why we could not think of this? Okay. And you can create a small space of 5 feet by 5 feet. That's all it takes. But make sure that you are structurally designing that. Okay. You should be very sure of that. I'll tell you why structural design by a professional is so very important. Now, again, on the driveways, we keep talking of rainwater harvesting. Please use technology. Please use porous concrete. And when I say porous concrete, I'm just not referring to your cement concrete. It can be a myriad of concrete, recycled block, and where they are not structurally, what I would like to say, prime requirement. Please do not use, prime material which are from the source, the original material. Please reuse the material, like, for example, on your driveways, whatever waste you have, try to endeavor towards a zero waste project, zero waste site, so that it percolates down. And always think out of the box. That is very important. I'll give you another very small example. There was a very brilliant young Indian engineer who worked on a NASA project where Neil Armstrong was sent there. Okay. And when Neil Armstrong was sent there, as you all know, one of the most critical life support equipment in a space capsule is the oxygen generator. As an oxygen generator. But our brilliant young engineer from India who was there, he placed a Sansevieria plant in the cabin for the oxygen generation during orbit. And he said this was our contribution to the first flight to the moon. Of course, he got awarded in the Minnesota University, and this is the plant. And you know who is this young engineer who did this? Think of the very small thing. He is no other than the brilliant, our Dr. Prem Jain. He did that. Okay. So you need to, the point I'm trying to make is that just don't look at him as a legend. Look at him for what he did, small things, just a small potted plant going there. Okay. And then this is where we need to think. We need to leverage that thing. For example, here I got my friend Hariharan Chandra, who is endeavoring towards a zero waste construction project, not only during construction, but after completion. Now you see all this stuff you have seen. These are all made of waste construction material. And you need to have a little bit of a common sense, I would like to say. Never, always you put it on a raised platform so that, water doesn't find a easy path out in case there are any punctures in the slab. All these are things. And then what he has done is all these things that you see is all recycled material. No zero waste going on. We can do all these things. That the problem, and then and he says that he doesn't remember the last time when he purchased vegetables for his house. And when he says his house, it's not his house. All the apartments in his complex, he supplies vegetables to them with only one condition, that there's a barter system, in the sense that all the wet waste that is generated in that apartment comes back to the terrace, and he has created voids here. They put it back. There's a small shovel. They put some amount of soil on it, and then they go away. And it's all, they know that it's all comes in a cycle. It's all organized. The point I'm trying to say is that everything of this, goes in cycles, and you have to think. For example, today we are having work from home concept. There's a lot of noise in the cities, like noise attenuation. See, these are fantastic extruded clay blocks. So what you can do is to attenuate noise instead of padding your entire walls with insulation material, which is highly engineered, which is highly, energy consuming to manufacture them. You could just take these blocks and first half of it, suppose if this is the bond that you have got, you've gone from this about 3 feet level, because noise always travels, in a perfect line. Of course, only it bends when there's a reflective surface. So the first surface of it, everything you can put all these things, and then the noise attenuation is there. And then you can also blind it. For example, on the other side, you can go in for blinding, so that, there is a solid wall here, and the vagaries of nature do not come in. Small things like that. In fact, the house in which I lived, it's all made very unconventionally. I completed the structure of my house in 7 days. It was on a second floor. Okay. And only in 7 days flat, it was hollow structural steel tubes, which were erected on the beams and then the decking slab. It took me about 4 to 4.5 days to lift the material. That's why it took time. And the entire installation just took me 2 days. And in that, 1.5 days was installation. And then the half a day was only inspection. I wanted to make sure that first time right principle, the slopes, the welding that went into it, the bolting that went to it, and then exactly even the gusset plate that I gave should have validated my structural analysis. If there was a moment and it required a certain angle of gusset plate, it received 2. And if it did not require, it received only 1. So that embodied energy material which went there was also very frugal. The point is, frugalness is something we need to. Frugalness means I'm not talking of kanjusitana. I am talking of frugal thing is when you take something, really ask, do you require it? For example, when you go to a marriage hall, you get the entire spread. Once in a while, splurge. But then when you go, the first thing is that when you go to the dining hall, please go to the kitchen and take a walk and see what are the different dishes. And in that, you please pick 1, 2, 3, 4 and done. Don't go through all the 15 dishes, leave out the 10 dishes and have only 5. That's criminal waste. So what I'm trying to say is that frugal approach, enjoy it, but be frugal on that. Likewise, frugal in everything. Okay. Now, again, thinking out of the box and some points to ponder out is that the furniture, lean to furniture or something, and try to use re-engineered wood. For example, why do you require, for example, I'm sitting on this table that I'm sitting. This table does not have any legs because it's all folded. It's all foldable types. And I have purposely made my office come steady in such a small place, though I could have afforded. I made it such a small place in order to experiment and see whether it will really work. And I'm really happy to say that it more than works, but then my productivity has gone up hugely because everything is on an arm's reach. I want something, it's all on the arm's reach. Okay, which means to say I've used less material. I've recycled the material. And even the table that I'm sitting is not a table I have brought. Maybe in some apartment which I did, which I owned, I was redoing that. I had a lot of waste pieces of particle board, plywood and all. I never threw them away. I brought them, re-engineered them and did everything out of them. The point that I'm trying to say is that it's not so much about what I did. It's so much about what we all can do. Lean to furniture. Take off the 2 legs and let the legs go on. Let the wall support it. Use hinges. Let the wall support it. And let the other 2 legs be the support to it. And likewise, the smart movable wardrobes and storages. There are certain, young smart couple who are moved in. They are moved into a plot. They have brought a plot, but they have come back and told to me, we do not want a big house. You know what they have done? They have just 3 capsules. The one capsule is the kitchen. The other capsule is the bedroom. That's it. And then they've got a wash area, the toilet. Only 3 capsules. And one person has gone ahead and the partition between the kitchen and the bedroom, the entire partition moves. And that's not actually a partition. That's his wardrobe. That's his wardrobe. And he opens the wardrobe and steps into the kitchen. In the night, both of them push. And that particular kitchen, which is somewhere around 8 feet by 10 feet, gets compressed to 3 feet by 10 feet. Can you imagine that? So that is the leverage that they are having. And they said, we are enjoying it. And the rest of the land that they have got in that small plot of land, they are doing the entire garden area. They are trying out with different seeds and things like that. And that's some breakout space. They both go to work and then they let it out for, some kids to come and play there. But they put a condition that every kid at the end of the month should say what they have done for that garden. So the kids enjoy, they have got their own space there. And these are innovative thinking, collapsible staircases. See, why do you build a staircase which is there present 24/7? The staircase is hardly used 2 times a day. So you just fold it up onto the wall and go, isn't it? And when you do that, you do away with your expensive construction material, your so much of, embodied energy that goes into conventional material. Use recycled wood, timber, plastic, steel, glass, whatever you have. Just fold it up. You go to Instagram, you get fantastic ideas there, free of cost. Only thing is that the geometry is something which you need to see. And for God's sake, please give importance to the safety. See, when you're folding up your staircase, that folding is done by a child, an elderly person, a well-bodied person. We don't know. But when the finger should not get crushed. Therefore, you need to build in that small systems wherein even when you sleep, when you push that particular staircase, you don't crush your fingers. And that staircase can be pushed only in one way, and it should have a leverage action. And when you unfold the staircase, it should not come and punch through your toe, right? So things like that. All these things require a bit of common sense, and we can do that. It is, and most importantly, see, most of the terrace floors that you see are perfectly flat. I would say it is, I don't know why people make it perfectly flat. Just give a gradient. You suppose if you want the entire water to be flowing towards east, then raise the west portion of that particular wall by about 3 inches. That's all, 3 inches. And when you put your RCC slab, let it slope down towards the east. The point that I'm trying to say is that let all the water flow only to one side and then slope it and then tap it off. The point that I'm trying to say is that when you don't have a flat roof, when you evacuate the water faster on that roof, then there is no chance of that. It doesn't find world of a time to percolate. Why leakage today you're seeing in apartments and houses? Because they're almost flat or undulation, they're ponding. And the water said, I got a whole world of time. I'll take my time. When you sleep, I'll get into crevices. I'll start dripping and dripping and dripping. But when it is a slope, then it just runs away. It says, oh my God, I'm slipping all through the surface. I don't have space to even anchor myself onto any crevice. So these are some very small sensical things. Okay. And I'm sorry, there's a typo here. This roof overhang. Now, most of the places that I see.
Where are you? Oh, घर पे है वो.
Sorry about that. Yeah, roof overhang. Now, I told you slope the roof. Please don't arrest that along the building wall or the parapet wall. Take it away from the wall by almost about 1.5 feet, because let the overhang of the roof be there, and then you put a drip mold so that the water, even if it drips, it doesn't come out. And then when you punch through for the rainwater, please make sure that none of your pipes are clamped onto the wall. They have to be clamped onto a bracket with a clear 2 inch of, after the plastered surface, there must be minimum 2.5 inches of free space from the pipe. It may be a water pipe, it may be a rain pipe, it may be a sewer pipe, or it may be a wastewater pipe. They should never ever touch your building wall, please. They should always be in a bracket and clamped to that, so that your building is protected from dampness. Tomorrow, if you need to replace, you can easily replace. And therefore, you can also do easy inspection. These are small things, but we don't do it. For the last 50 years, we have been talking, but we hardly follow this. And these are something. And then the spaces between tiles of your bathrooms. Never ever provide a paper joint in your bathroom, period. We have been doing these tiles for 50 odd donkeys years. But even today, we have not learnt it. We want paper joint. Then after about 2-3 years, you don't understand the concept of coefficient of thermal expansion. It is different for a tile. It is different for a grout material. Whichever is stronger, it will push through and say, you weak material, grout material, get out. I want this space. When that happens, the crevices happen. And then after you have that lovely bath that you have, the water slowly, it says, okay, bye, you go out of the toilet, but I have got the next 24 hours to keep dripping and dripping and dripping. And that's where you get all these things. And that's why please provide spaces. It will help you to inspect. And in case need be, you will not damage the tile. You will just remove that particular grout material and redo the grouting. Why you should not damage the tile? Because tile is extremely expensive from environmental point of view. It is fired to such a high extent to get that gloss. It is mined from material which are not occurring commonly. Okay. So these things are important. So consider material of construction, recycled wood, steel, and the decking sheet also. In fact, in the house, just I'm drawing in parallel so that you believe me that the roof of my house does not have 1 kilogram of reinforcement steel. It is just decking sheet. It is designed to take the tensile, which normally the tensile stress is taken by the reinforcement steel, right? But here, the deck is taking the entire tensile stress. And on that, I just gone in for nominal weld mesh reinforcement, just to arrest the, not for strength, to arrest the shrinkage crack. And it's all GGBS concrete. I've gone to the extent of 40% of cement being replaced by GGBS. And I am confident And I could do it because I'm an engineer. I know it's like a doctor, trying to take a drug that he knows that it works. Likewise, all of us should be that. And most importantly, the mindfulness is very important. Frugal, less is more, all those things, converges on what? Converges on mindfulness. We see all these things. Solid waste generated, you can see 11 billion tons. And every month, every week, or what we do, try to experiment on this. We do not get this readily in the market. And that's why I said in the first slide, all of us should be inventors, innovators, designers, and more importantly, applicators. If we don't do it, don't expect the vendor to come and give this. Don't expect the vendor to do. Look at all this mass. And urbanization is the major cause of not, sustainability being compromised. More the people, more compromise it happens. And that's where the population also should be reduced to the extent possible, if not to a substantial extent. All these places will now be converted, and it leads to a lot of greenhouse issues. And then when we design also, we need to be a little bit centric to the health of the people. Now I'll go a little bit more on to the sustainable alternatives. I have Hariharan sir, how much more time do we have?
Another 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, then I have to
Very
rush.
fascinating, but time is a challenge.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Now, just going very fast, let me tell you why professionalism is so very important. I know that I can speak, I can give a lot of data, I can bring in, a big, nice building which we have done out of bamboo, all those things that you can find it anywhere. But I would like you to explore that small avenue in your mind, which normally people don't dare to tread into that. And that is, professionalism versus quackery. Case studies of building, and why I want to substantiate with some forensic investigations that we have made. I've been a part of some teams which are along with just mentioned Mr. Engineer Srikanth. We did investigations across 9 projects in Karnataka which collapsed about 3 years back, taking some life. Right from that Hubli Dharwad building. I'll just show you those buildings. This is a Hubli Dharwad building, and you see all these innocent lives. In fact, more than 30 people are said to have perished, and all these were very innocent. One particular lady was on her way back picking her child from the school to the house. The child asked for a chocolate. She stepped into this building to buy a chocolate from one of the grocery stores or whatever stores. And then they were no more. And just see how very dramatic, how very poignant. And this is not a done thing. And this is not happening just because of some, natural disaster. No, it is a man-made killing. It's a murder. And why it's a murder? Let's see. And look at this. We went into the intricacies of, we rebuilt the entire thing back. Okay. We went into the steel and we started finding what is this material which is coming out. Oh my God. These are tendons. These are post-tension tendons. What was it doing in this building? It's a very highly technical, it requires a lot of technical information and knowledge to be putting it in a building. Who was there? Nobody was there. Somebody provided it. It's like, you don't know, for the first time you're driving a car, you don't know what is accelerator, what is brake, and what is a clutch. Imagine the horrendous consequence of driving such a driver in a crowded place. It's like that. Okay. And we rebuilt entire thing. We took the dimensions, we rebuilt the entire thing to analyze what actually happened. So you can see that we are investigation there. And we also talked to the people as to how did the building behave. We took into each and every consideration of how things happen. And this is the other project at Puttanalli. Okay. And then you can see the building has just come down and it has collapsed. The top floors are okay. And then we simulated. In fact, this was the building which collapsed. Okay. And that it went and hit this building and came back. And this building crumbled because of that vibration. Now people started asking, did you have a video camera to see that? We didn't have a video camera. But then we re-engineered and reanalyzed and started challenging our own situations. And you see this particular crack of this building having gone, hit this building, and it has come back. Okay. And then look at the crack which has happened here. Okay. And then look at this. The entire structure, this part is intact, but then it has crushed. Why it has got crushed here? And look at the impact of this, right? And then we went into, if you can find this thing, if you are familiar with the codal provisions, IS codal provisions of steel detailing, reinforcement detailing, you will come to know. We studied every damn thing, the grade of concrete, the matrix of concrete, how it collapsed. And then you see that this particular hook is not supposed to be 90 degrees. It is supposed to be 135 degrees. The point I'm trying to make is that you need to be a thorough professional, and everybody who is ordained to do a job only should do a job. A surgeon cannot go and fly an aircraft. A pilot cannot come and do the job of a dentist. A dentist cannot do the job of a civil engineer. Likewise, everybody that's why we are called professionals. Because apart from our domain of knowledge, we don't know any other thing. If I'm a civil engineer, I cannot be an astronaut because I don't know it. I know only civil engineering. If I'm a lawyer, I know law. So only those people. And this is another particular building which we have seen. And look at this. There was a mutton stall here. Okay. And there were rodents there. They undermined the foundation. And it collapsed. Okay. And then that's the reason I say ban cockery, for the simple reason that all these things will be stunned that one common factor emerged, that there was no input of a technical person there. It was all, the owner said, no, that particular person is known to us. Get this particular person who is non-technical guy. He has turned into a contractor and do that. We are not against any other people like Mestris. We want them. They are our partners. But they have to do the job only that they are ordered to do. They are fantastic in mobilizing labor, fantastic in monitoring labor and managing labor. They have to do it. Without them, we can't. But the detailing part has to be given, the planning perhaps to the architect, the civil engineering structure, and therefore please encourage professionalism, optimal approach, frugal engineering, sustainable-centric approach, and more importantly, the mindfulness. And that is where there's a tremendous scope in preventive building services and structural stability, retrofitting, and these are something. And most important, I will urge all the students to please go through National Building Code 2016. It has got a dedicated section, a chapter on sustainability. Please read it 50 times. And at the same time, go through administrative part, which talks about professionality. That's where, fortunately for architects, thanks to the foresight thinking of the architects, then you have an Architects Act. But unfortunately, the civil engineers do not have an act. And today we are moving heavily in that direction. Probably by February and March, we will table it. And very quickly, the practice in water resources. Please make sure that this is the last tranche. Please make sure that you always wear your thinking caps in a public area. Instead of giving a bip tap, people move to the spring-loaded tap. And instead of a spring-loaded tap, please go to a foot-operated tap. Because when you press the knob of a spring-loaded tap, when it comes back to its normal position, it takes about 7 to 10 seconds. But you wash your hands in 2 seconds and walk off, which means 5 seconds you're wasting precious water, very, very precious water. And that's where, but on a foot pedal, you only, press it, depress it to the time you require, and then take your instinctively, that happens. And likewise, the efficient site planning, water efficient equipments and fixtures, and then the leaking taps are a major bane. Please put attention to that. Okay. These are some things. Since we are pressed for time, I'll not take more on this. And then coming on to the holistic thing, most important thing is create infrastructure and invest in infrastructure. Each one of us, don't wait for the government to do it. In our own projects, let's do it. Some fantastic thing which the latest conservation projects are there. You can go through it. Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Rajasthan Jal Swayam, Tamil Nadu's, all these things are there in the web, and including Neeru Pragati. All these things are there. Neeru Chettu project in Neeru Chettu means tree in Telugu. So you've got a program in Telangana which has been highly successful. And then all the environmental practices with centricity to creating awareness. When I say awareness amongst our own fraternity, and most importantly, the circular economy, where this concept of recyclability, sustainability is very important, with the concept of embodied energy, which should become ubiquitous. And some fantastic projects. I'm now going from the small to the large. These are all real-time projects. Please spend some time.
Those. Yeah.
You can skip Infosys, Auroville and all. And then the policies of the government, they are very so friendly. So please go through this, and you have to be tuned to this because there's a lot of takeaways. And ultimately, this is the last slide, which summarizes the entire thing. Please be aware of the certifications such as green buildings, IGBC, LEED, encourage recyclable materials, energy efficiency and water conservation, waste management and recycling. And when I say waste management and recycling, better practices in tools and plans. We don't talk of tools and plans. We only keep talking of material of construction. For example, the better material, ready plaster. You need to see how much rebound is there on a plaster, on a ready plaster. So like that. And then ultimately landscaping, adopting frugal approach, less maintenance, transportation, which is important, that perhaps we can touch later. and most importantly, awareness programs where such this noble trust, Prem Jain Memorial Trust is doing such a noble job that we need to create awareness with every last professional that we have in our construction industry, civil engineering, architecture, and infrastructure. With that, I come to the end. Thank you all very much for the patient hearing.
Absolutely, absolutely brilliant, Girish. This is the longest lecture. I had half a heart, half a mind to tell you to stop at about 15 minutes ago, but I found it so interesting, and I'm sure everybody else enjoyed it as much.
I'm so sorry to overshoot my time. I'm so sorry about it.
Let me start with Dr. Suman Rawat. Your quick take on this, Ravji. After which, let us talk to Dr. Rane, if he's around.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Congratulations, sir, for such a nice lecture. I have one question. You was talking about the climate change and all these things. Climate change is it is a natural phenomena. Means if we will see from the beginning of the earth till present time, there was so many times climate change was there. So why we are so much worried about this climate change? Or even if we are talking about the temperature rise, if you will see the history, because I am a geologist, so I know from the very beginning of the earth history till present time, there so many times there was the change in the climate was there. Even the temperature and the CO2 concentration of the atmosphere was much higher in the present time. So why we are so much worried?
Okay.
I don't know whether this is a valid question or not,
Good question. Okay, go ahead. Quickly.
Dr. Hariharan, who will take this? Should I take this?
Yeah, go ahead. Very quickly.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, then I will very quickly go back to this.
No. But you don't have to go to any slide, Girish. Let me start this and then you can pitch in, Girish, after me. But I'll put it like this to you. The one single debilitating factor, as he showed in his very first slide, is that we have grown from less than 1 billion in 1900, not even 100, 120 years ago. That's the one.
Yeah,
to whatever it is today at 7 billion. There was another slide of his where he was showing, there it is. He's showing 6 billion here. We are at 7.5 billion. Who is this? Gemini, you have to keep it muted, please. Yeah. So, the thing, Suman, essentially for you is forget every other factor. Like he says, the quantum of consumption has been really, really disastrous for us. And if you look at time from now to 2064, the world peaks at 9 billion in 2064. India peaks at 1.62 billion, 1,620 million, right? China is about little less than us by that time. We already are more populous than China. So now between 2064, there are projections that show that by 2100, we will drop down by 1.5 billion people. And there are factors for that, and I can share some of the report on that. I will leave it there. Girish, if you want to add something very quickly before we go to Dr. Rane.
Sure. Dr. Suman, basically it has to do with, as Dr. Hariharan said, the numbers. But then the numbers, it brings with them the consumption factor, which is a major issue. And when the numbers today, for example, tell us, way back in 2000, did any one of us have got the mobile phone? We didn't. Today, every individual has got at least not less than 6 to 7 mobile phones. If you look at so many mobile phones have changed in the last about 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And each mobile phone is it has got embodied energy that we are all keeping it. We don't know how to discard it also. The point that I'm trying to make is that today, though the climate change has happened, it has not happened the way it has happened, point one. Point two is that the real climate change is something we are not taking cognizance of.
Yeah.
For example, I'll give you a small example. I was working in a Emirati in Middle East, and all of a sudden the king declared that anybody washing their car with a hose, if I convert it into Indian currency, 5 lakh rupees is the fine. Anybody washing their car with a hose, point one. Point two is that if somebody is going around in a daytime and they see in the apartment balcony, the light is switched on, okay? The penalty is 2.5 lakh, 2,50,000 rupees. I don't want to tell it in reals. I'm just converting because reals will not give you the sort of touch of Indian currency. 2,50,000 just because one bulb is glowing there. The point that I'm trying to make is today the consumption it's a dire situation. And mind you, I am talking of one of the richest nations. Okay, they have taken cognizance of this. Why? Because it is there at your doorstep. But we here, when you just look at Bangalore in the last 3 to 4 months, have you slightly stepped onto the curb and walked Bangalore for 30 minutes? If you want to punish a very hardcore criminal in Bangalore, do not give him any punishment. On a Saturday, ask him to drive in CBD area for 2 hours. That's all. He will never ever do that crime, perhaps. And look at the recent times in some malls. The entire airport was jammed. What are we talking of is the consumption is so very dire, Dr. Suman, that we need to really focus on this. I'm sure that I have just given you 0.001% of the answer that I want to give you, but for the brevity of time, it is only on the consumption that today we need to focus.
Sure.
And that's why it is so very prominent.
Yes, Santosh Rane, your take, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to get associated with you all. I'm thankful to Institute for giving me an opportunity to be the part of this wonderful event. Girish sir, your session was excellent, and I don't have the appropriate words for the same. I have already clapped for the same. And you have touched almost all the points in a very systematic manner with all the appropriate innovations, suggestions, some of the case studies, some of the small things what we can do. Fine. So from my side, the most important thing is the formulation of the policy at the global level, number one. Then implementation of the policy with the necessary rigor by all the countries, educating the people, giving the necessary planning, giving the necessary mechanisms, facilitating their journey towards sustainability. All these things are essential at the global level as well as at the Indian level. Because at India, we are 143 crore population. And how many of us are really talking about the sustainability? How many of us are really working out of 143 crore? How many of us are working towards sustainability?
In your
few of them,
what
hardly
would
few of them.
Yes,
very few of them.
Yes.
So the point is, we need everyone's contributions towards sustainability. Then only we can achieve the real sustainable goal. That is something very, very important. And for this purpose, we need the policies at the international level, at the global level, and every small activity which is creating the impact on the environment should be appropriately taken with the due seriousness, and the appropriate kind of a punishment or some kind of a penalty or some kind of a mechanism should be available so that the person will not dare to do that activity once again. Like you have given some example that somebody is washing a car by a pipe. So he's fined. Then there is a bulb glowing in a balcony and the person went out of the colony. So the fine is 2.5 lakhs rupees, something like that. So all these small things must be taken with the due seriousness, because see, engineers can build, that is fine, but only building is not sufficient. Maintaining is more challenging than building. That's what my experience is. Maintaining the system with the necessary efficiency and the effectiveness is more challenging, and it needs more rigorous efforts with very good kind of a leadership drive, and that too 24/7. Even so, everyone should be taken into consideration, and everyone should receive the appropriate input, and every day for all small our lifestyle activities should be connected with the sustainability awareness, how our small decisions are creating the sustainability. One of our friend, he was proudly telling us that he had 100 shirts in his wardrobe. He has more than 150 t-shirts in his wardrobe.
Sure.
My simple question is,
Dr. Rane, can we focus on what your institution can do to walk the talk? If you want the government to do, policy to change, all that is general bhashan. Can you tell us what you can take specific steps? And people like Girish as leaders, we from the Prem Jain Memorial Trust will help you and support you. For example, he showed you one of the slides toward the end where he talked about water in one line. And there were 5 solutions there, starting from rainwater harvest to digital water measurement and so on. Can you do net zero water in your college?
See, there are few things what we have already identified. That is, see, we have a tall rise building, so naturally we can install the some wind turbines over there. That is one. Already we tried, however, that was not too much successful. But we are still exploring in what way we can make it more effective.
It need not be necessarily from the supply side.
Yeah.
Most often, I can tell you from many buildings that I have been presiding over, that it is to do with the demand side. And demand side is not to do with compromising comfort or convenience, whether it's to do with your air conditioning or your lighting or whatever it is. There are multiple different ways of doing it in energy as well as in water. If you are willing to say yes, we are willing to pitch in and help you.
And another thing is that we have the different appliances in the entire institution. These appliances particularly can have the motion sensors.
Yes.
By applying these motion sensors in these
appliances, are the smaller ones. That's all.
Yeah. So energy conservation can take.
But we can have a separate. If you are willing to take this step, Dr. I can tell you that we can specifically provide a whole array of solutions, both in water and in energy. Girish, you wanted to add something to this?
Yes. Sorry. I 100% agree with Dr. Santosh Raneji that we need to have some compliances and things like that. But I'll go one step further. Very simple and doable thing. All that is fine. Compliances should be there because as a lawyer, I can say that if you don't have a chedi, you cannot control the bandar. So like chedi chahiye, all these things are there, fine. But whether the chedi is in the formulation stage or implemented secondary, let's all of us come together, do our bit. My battery limits are this. For example, today, if I am handling, say, I'm doing a design build of, say, about 6 projects. Mera 6 projects mein I'll do this. And if I can request Dr. Hariharan sir, Santosh Raneji, Dr. Suman, Professor Pallavi, and all these things, and just say that I'm doing these projects. This is the way I have done. I want to share my knowledge. Just do that. They will come back and say, you did this fantastic. Can you also think of this? So what are that micro nano collaborations? Let's do it. We have a lot of debates going on. Yes, once in a while, we need to have a debate because we all know that we are going in the right direction.
Right.
We are not doing 2 + 2 = 5. We need to have, but today is the time when we have no time. Like Dr. Suman was mentioned, we have no time. Every day, every hour wasted is wasted if we do not adopt this. Let's act. Why kya ho? Aaj in my design, that is what is very important. Let's do it. Compliances being there, let's go beyond that. If IGBC or the rating system says you have to achieve this, why only achieve this? Go beyond that.
Yes.
Sure. Pallavi Dogare, what would you want to add?
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Before I invite Jain Oberoi. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Girish, sir, for the wonderful session. Your energy was superb. I was charged and your full session was so thought-provoking. So many thoughts started rolling in my mind. And now I can summarize the takeaway from this session is designing and building an eco-way is a kind of journey where I can say we require the commitment from the...
Oh, we lost her. Yeah. We lost her network, I think. Okay, we'll come back to her. Mr. Jain Oberoi, are you there? Would you want to say something?
I can hardly speak. My throat is jammed.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've been suffering for the past few days, but well, it's an amazing sea of knowledge which was ushered in by engineer Girish, and to have traced it back to the Harappan, and thereafter it comes down to Egypt, and thereafter it comes down the way. I mean, very complimentary. And certainly what Santosh Rane has said, which we've been even discussing in another forum this morning, it's the maintenance. It's the maintenance, which is a much bigger problem than construction. And especially maintenance as far as the green aspects and sustainability and environment, because in multi-dwellings, people tend to cheat. they tend to overlook. And we have to come out with a way to find that out. Thank you. Sorry, I can speak
I
very
know your
little.
voice is really bad today.
Yeah.
But I must tell you all that our Mr. Jain Oberoi has constructed many iconic buildings, including that Oberoi Palace in Jaipur. Many such wonderful buildings he's done over the last 30, 40 years. Back to you, Pallavi. Your line.
So sorry, actually, this is a network issue. So I just, the takeaway from this session is that in this journey, I think we require the commitment from individual. We want a strong collaboration between the all stakeholders, and finally it will lead to the innovation for the society.
Absolutely.
So strong, one simple change I'll do in my day-to-day life, in my routine, that henceforth I'll prioritize the local resourcing. I'll try to do the partnership with the local contractors, laborers, or artists, so that it will minimize somehow 0.001% reduction in the whatever transportation related pollution and all that. So that change definitely I'll do, and I'll start with the commitment towards this.
And if you all three of you consent for another offline meeting after this session sometime in the coming week, we are very, very open to giving you a whole set of ideas that can drop your energy consumption by a minimum of 15%. If your electricity bill today is 50 lakhs a month, trust me, we'll bring it down by 1 crore a year, straight away. Don't ask me how, but when you say, the moment you say it's a multi-rise building, I know what you have as challenges in your energy consumption. The second is on water. I will not assure you, but I'll guarantee you that we can bring down your freshwater demand by 50% at the very minimum. This is guaranteed. If it is assurance, I will say it can be stretched to 70%, right? Or that is 70% less consumption than what you are having as freshwater demand today. We can help you achieve that if you want to actually seriously do something. So what it means effectively for you is that you save that money. You save that money after the first 2 years. Your investment payback, I don't have to tell people like you who are all discerning bidders, that your payback of that investment that you make will be in about 2.5 years, maximum 3 years. After that, it's free for you. But in the process, what have you done? You achieved a lot of the things that our engineer Girish has advised today on sustainability. I'm saying achieve sustainability, but achieve cost saving for your building, for your organization. I'll stop there. It's 4:23. Thanks to this fascinating session. And with the, like Dr. Rani said, our Girish has given a lot of thought to the slides. Each slide he is crafted and chosen to be put there. He has so much more to say. I'm sure that he could have spoken for the next 2 hours also, but we will keep it for another time. Girish, I must speak to you. Thank you so much. I mean, offline another time, tomorrow, day after. There's so much you have been doing, and I know this man for the last 10, 12 years. I have always seen him to be extremely humble, to a point where others will think, he may not know too much. This is the challenge. His extreme humility is itself a challenge with Girish, Lovely person, great thinking. And you can see that he's thinking off his feet. Even as he's speaking, he's coming up with ideas. So it's wonderful to have all of you listen to him, especially your students. And I'm hoping that somewhere 2 students, 3 students change their way because of what he spoke today. Thank you so much once again. We should close. Have a great weekend. Have a great and wonderful year of first health and great learning and sharing, I will say. Prosperity, other things are outcomes, like the Gita says, Thank you, Suman, for
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. I think it's not that you made my day, you made my 2024, because getting a commendation from a Guruji like you is itself such a fantastic thing. And definitely I would look forward to being always there whenever Prem Jain Trust has got such outreach activities. Thank you also very much for the trustees and all the people who made this happen. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Yatin, for putting it together. Thank you, Jain Oberoi, for being here. Despite
Thank you, Yatin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. Yeah, bye.